Hello and welcome to another AGS Live. I'm Erin Moore, the Global Solutions Executive at AGS in Austin, Texas, and we're really excited to have you all join us today. In the past few months, we've been joined by Facebook to hear about their global transition to a new MSP and VMS and adding in direct sourcing, as well as Walgreens joined us and talked about their transition from a self-managed program to an AGS MSP. And today we get to hear how data visibility is shaping Dexcom's workforce strategy.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Jill Locke and I am a program executive with the latest Global Solutions. I've been with the for just 4 years and I have had the opportunity to partner very fortunately with the Dexcom team and with Kristy here today to support the launch of Dexcom's external workforce program since July of 2020. So really excited to be talking about data visibility and just how critical it is and the impact that it's had in shaping and the journey that we have with Dexcom. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
All righty. Hi there, everyone. I'm Kristy Gephart. Very excited to be here today, chat with our AGS team. I am the Senior Manager of Talent Acquisition at Dexcom. Been at Dexcom for almost 4 years now. It's crazy just to think how fast the time has gone. The last 4 years have been, Dexcom's gone through a lot of growth and changes. I'm currently managing a team of recruiters that oversee and support the operations, FTE hiring across the US. And then in addition to that, I oversee our TA operations as well as our contingent workforce for the entire organization. Prior to Dexcom, I've held various roles in talent acquisition as well as operations, mostly within the medical device industry. So I've been partnering with AGS over the last couple of years here and through COVID. So I'm just really excited to chat more today.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. Thanks for joining today. So maybe you could start at the beginning and tell us a little bit about the scope of the program that you have today.
Absolutely. So today, the contingent workforce that we have here at Dexcom is comprised of a variety of roles across the organization. Some of the larger groups include clinical trainer positions across the country. We've got light industrial workers, including manufacturing associates, as well as material handlers. And then just several various, IT, finance, and general administrative positions.
And I understand this isn't your first go around with an MSP?
No, it's not. So, yeah, as I mentioned, kind of in the introduction, Dexcom's gone through just some significant, growth and changes over the last several years. As you know, right, as you go through, significant growth, you evaluate and strategize the needs of the organization and make the appropriate changes. And so, as we're working with, some of the various leaders and stakeholders, we've identified, some different needs. We had, a program in place and identified, opportunities for, really what we'd like our program to be. And so we went through, the process, obviously with AGS and, really have changed, quite a bit, I think, really just to help us build out a good structured and strategic program.
I hear you kicked off your implementation right at the beginning of the pandemic. How was that?
Yeah, so I think I can speak for, everyone. I don't think we were prepared for COVID and all of the changes that it brought. We had been planning, right? We had started the process with our RFP process, gosh, long before COVID was around, and we had been planning our kickoff meeting to be held in March of 2020. That's right around the time when COVID, became a talking point at work regarding, travel and, who was working on site, who wasn't. And so it was definitely an interesting time as things are very fluid. Obviously things were developing. We had stayed in contact with the AGS team. We thought about postponing, but decided we were going to move forward. At least start virtually and kind of just weigh things and how everything was going with COVID. Obviously, with how things progressed, we didn't have the option to go on site and work together, but I'm glad we didn't delay our kickoffs.
Were there, from either one of you, were there any challenges that you faced or any major lessons learned that came out of having an entirely virtual implementation?
Yeah, so I'm happy to chat. So Jill, please feel free to add whatever you would like. But I think with any implementation, right? And this implementation, it was a really big project. A really big time commitment, as well as when you're trying to balance everything going on with COVID obviously happening and trying to keep with the day-to-day responsibilities that you have, and then also trying to work through some of the strategic initiatives that you have. And so I think what I want to say is that we've had from the very beginning just some really great partnerships. And I think that because of a lot of the communication that we've had, I think that really helped us in just making sure that we would be successful, in this implementation. I think we were very intentional, especially because this was a first, I think, for AGS. It was a first for, obviously Dexcom. And so, we really, it was top of mind every day, right? Every discussion, just wanting to make sure that, we were appropriately, planning and thinking about things, that we may have missed because, we weren't in front of each other.
I think that sums up really well. One of the things we didn't want to miss is there's a lot of face-to-face value that we get, especially through discovery. And so we didn't want to miss the nonverbal cues. We didn't want to miss some of that conversation that leads to items that we're trying to change or implement in the process. So it was really important for us to be on camera. And we knew that that's kind of a daunting task. Today, we don't feel that way, but we knew that would be daunting then, segmented breaks. But we also took time to really chat at that face-to-face value and talk about things that could potentially lead to something through the discovery. So that was the only challenge, is kind of the water cooler conversation. We didn't want to miss that because it is important.
Mm-hmm. Build those relationships. That's great. So what were some of the goals that you had? You must have had some lofty goals if you were going to jump in a virtual implementation. Can you tell us about what was really driving you to make that change?
Well, I think, as we were going through the RFP and, I mentioned, right, a lot of the changes and how we were growing as an organization and really just how we were looking at our contingent workforce. We obviously had some, goals and ideas, but our initial plan was really to do, more of a lift and shift with some minor changes when we went live. And so, we wanted to make the move, but, really focus on, program adoption, and then, be able to, as we, were able to kind of just bring about some of that stability and, help people through that change, really then focus on the strategic roadmap. So I would say that, the one piece that we were looking forward to that we didn't necessarily need to wait for was the data that was that you guys would be able to provide to us.
And how has that data visibility changed any of your strategy, any of the business strategy at Dexcom so far? Have you seen any impact?
I have, yeah. So it's funny to think about it now, right? When we started that RFP process, I don't even know, maybe, 3-4 months before, COVID was even known. One of our main drivers was data. Fast forward, to where we are today, a couple years later, and data has become even more important to us, especially with the labor challenges that everyone is having and has had, over the last couple of years. And so access to data has really helped us with our decisions, decision making and driving for change. We've changed, our sourcing strategy. Made increases to salaries, improved our time to hire, added, some of that visibility into our diversity spend. And then honestly, the data has just opened up the door to think outside the box. I mentioned that I have responsibilities for, the FTE hiring. And so having, the visibility to, and access to AGS in, just some of the things that are happening on the contingent side, it really allows us to think a little bit more strategically about, changes and improvements that we can make with my team of recruiters as well. Jill, how about you? I'm sure, I know I listed some things, but I know you guys live this every day. And so you're probably even more familiar with maybe some of the, additional, impacts and I guess
changes, maybe
changes that we've made.
Yeah, I think you hit everything on target. But I think when we talked about it, data drives decisions, and I love how you said in an earlier conversation, data takes the emotion out of decisions. And I'm sorry that I stole that from you, but I'm going to continue to use it because it was just such a good perspective to have, because it's so true. It's data validating exercise, but it's also an exercise in understanding where you are and then the opportunities of where you want to go. And so I think when you mentioned, speed to market or time to fill, that was really important to Dexcom. And I also think the talent acquisition and retention strategy was so important. And we saw from the onset that the market, we were just seeing from the impacts of COVID, a tough market. And so we had to, and Dexcom did a great job of seeking to understand how they get in front of this market and become competitive and have an advantage. So when we were able to not only pull the data, the empirical data from the system, but also engage our business analytics team, our marketing analytics team, and even incorporate the supply base and their insights, we were able to come to the table and help Dexcom make some decisions about becoming competitive in that market space. And then to Kristy's point, we were able to reduce some of that speed to market, which was so important, and what Dexcom's competitors were looking at doing too. So I really do think it was so critical to understanding where Dexcom was in the landscape, and that fell to the data to tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's exciting you guys could have such an impact internally as well. It sounds like there was an impact on cost and rates, your ability to go to market, and an impact on diversity management. Maybe we could focus on that that go-to-market piece. How did you guys? Were there any changes that you made to this worker sourcing strategy, or that really helped change getting workers on board sooner or at all? I know there's been a lot of challenge with getting talent in general.
Well, and Jill, I'll look to you too, because I know this has been a lot of, honestly, just a collaborative effort. Again, I'll start with saying a lot of the changes, right, that you're making, especially in the sourcing strategy, it's driven by the data. And so, I think that, we've had various challenges, obviously, during COVID, and the concerns that individuals have with working, the safety, and then just honestly, some people just made changes and adjustments to not work, make those decisions too. And so I think that that's where, having access to not only our data, internally and what we're seeing, right, the hires, the attrition, understanding, why, what those drivers were too with that turnover, but also having, the data and the insight, with just benchmark data, what is the industry saying, what can we learn from them too? That really helped us drive, some of the changes that, we had made as well.
I agree. I think it started with market analytics and understanding speed to market. It also started with engaging the supply base that we have, and Dexcom's done an amazing job at building trust with the suppliers. And so I think from what we saw with the increased time that Dexcom was experiencing with getting labor or temporary labor into the organization, when we benchmarked that against what the industry times were, we then took that and operationally decided to reevaluate some of the processes that we had. And that was really the easiest target, was to look at how are we doing things today? How can we pivot to kind of decrease those speed to market times? And we relied heavily on the suppliers and the partnership because they were already doing a lot of the interviewing. So I'll use that as an example. So if they were owning the interview process before Dexcom was even interviewing, and we have a trusted partnership with them, then really what we need to do is essentially get out of the supplier's way because they're providing top talent and we trust that they are. So we don't need to repeat the process. And when we went to Dexcom and had the conversation, I know Kristy agreed, it wasn't a one size fits all, but for those highly repeatable skill sets, it really worked. And then it cut out Dexcom and those times that we were seeing for speed to market. So it greatly reduced that metric, and we were able to get candidates into Dexcom's organization faster.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I was going to ask if I'm assuming with no impact to turnover or anything like that, seeing a pretty good return on that, it sounds like.
So I know I maybe speak prematurely. Jill probably has all of the data more readily available, but I know that we have looked into that specifically, the speed to market, with the go to work program that we put in place. And from what we have seen, the attrition, and turnover information, it's slightly improved actually a little bit there to where, it's definitely a benefit. And I love that, Jill, you brought this up because I know it's one of those things that I left out, but it really was a huge effort for us because, not only are we, just showing and putting our trust in the agencies and, their process, but we're also, really allowing our hiring leaders to, really focus more on, the teams that they have today without, really distracting them from, some of these other administrative types of responsibilities. So it has been really helpful and very beneficial. And again, something that, we can look into on the FTE side of the hiring that we're doing as well.
That's exciting. How about on the diverse spend strategy? I hear you guys have put quite a focus on that recently. How has that impacted or changed your program at all today?
Yeah, so I think for me, and I'll speak quickly, and then Jill, I'll definitely let you add to it. But with every company, right, diversity is a big strategic initiative, and it is, as well for Dexcom. Not only, in obviously the hiring, but also with our suppliers. And so, having access to this type of information and really those strategic conversations is new for us. And so, over the last year, the AGS team and, my team have been able to partner pretty closely, not only our groups, but also with our strategic sourcing group as well, just so that way we can, really understand the spend, but also, really help drive those additional diversity efforts as well. And so, as we're, looking to add suppliers to the program, this data and partnership is really helpful in driving those efforts. And I think one of the greatest things for me is just truly that the partnership too with these other groups, right? And I think that, before, in our old program, a lot of those things rolled through either myself or, my program manager, whereas today I really love those relationships and partnerships that strategic, sourcing manager and AGS have and we've built, and, it really allows us to accomplish more, and I don't have to be that liaison so much anymore. But I don't know, Jill, go ahead and fill in the gaps for me.
No, you said it beautifully. It's just about awareness, and I think the inclusion and diversity is such an important aspect of every organization, and all of our clients are prioritizing it right now. And we want to do that together responsibly. So that's really important as well. And it's about looking at where are we today? And Kristy has said, we're using a spend metric at this time. Where do we want to go as far as a measurable goal for 2022? And then creating a plan to get there. And we're leaning heavily on our suppliers, the partnerships there to help us.
It's great. You guys have such cross-functional alignment. How are you guys making that happen? I know sometimes we get, programs will get stuck in one department, and you've talked a lot about being able to include other departments. How are you getting AGS, the team connected to them and managing that change management with them?
Yeah, I think that rolls into it goes back, I think, to the program adoption, right? When you're implementing a program, I know for me, program adoption was, especially important. And it takes some time. It's change, and it's hard for hiring managers, but also some of these other, business partners that we're working with, specifically the strategic sourcing group. But and especially in a virtual environment, where, right, we do have some on-site support from AGS, but largely, I think, most of those conversations and partnerships are built virtually. And so, that's where COVID was probably a good thing for us too, because we kind of, perfected, just the way in which we're communicating, the cadence, and then just really allowing and empowering, I think, the Allegis team, right? That was one of the reasons too why we went with Allegis, is that we really wanted that just the partnership and that consultative approach to our contingent workforce. And so I would say that, right, each group within our organization, we have, all different groups. We have our, manufacturing and operations. We have our clinical sales, our finance teams, our IT teams. They all have different needs and wants, and those relationships are important. And so I think that, having, AGS and, their program, managers and associates, working directly with the leaders to understand what those needs are, so that they can, really help drive some of those initiatives, really help ensure, those conversations are happening, and really just the understanding of what, opportunities we have within the program, I think is key for, making and having these partnerships. A conversation that we had yesterday, honestly, with, a couple of our program manager with AGS and some of the other hiring leaders, it was such a great conversation that we were able to bring in AGS into this really strategy meeting to talk about, ways in which they can use AGS. And really it's that combined partnership, and the leaders are able to see too just that, here's our options, is it FTE, is it contingent workforce, and how can we work together to, find the talent that you need. And so I thought it was just so great to see that, where today and how well received it is from the business too.
You guys had mentioned a couple times, really being in touch with the organizational goals, and one of those had been cost savings. What have you guys implemented, or what have you been doing to help support that goal?
Yeah, so when we started, actually, when we first launched, we didn't plan to actually put too much effort into cost savings for like the first year. Again, we wanted to focus on the foundational things. In our previous model, we had just the markup model. When we went live with Allegis, though, we did implement, both the bill rate as well as a markup model for our light industrial workers. And so, I think that we're able to realize some of those cost savings, initially and upfront on those professional positions. And then we've also been able to add suppliers to our MSP that were previously providing staff augmentation under an SOW. And so, this has definitely, helped in providing some cost savings that honestly we weren't even planning for. But what I can say is that, over the last few months, and as we've been, really starting to, talk through and plan and put our, strategic roadmap together, we have been and we're currently working just some different cost savings opportunities that we will be able to, implement here, within the next months.
So a hot topic has been the Great Resignation. Can you tell us what kind of strategies you guys have implemented to reduce the impact of this on your program?
Some of the things I can quickly think about maybe are, just some of those strategies, right? Again, using that data in order to understand what we're dealing with and what changes we can actually make, right? That really drives the conversations. And so, once we had that information, you can work with the appropriate business partners. Some things that we've done, right, to help this year is, with sign-on bonuses for temps. That's not something we necessarily did, previously. Having some of the, COVID pay to help, keep people working. And obviously retaining that talent, making some of those market increases to and evaluations, honestly, across various positions, just to make sure that we were staying competitive. And then also looking at just temp conversions. Typically, right, within your contingent workforce, temps are wanting those benefits from the employer. And so, looking and trying to make sure that, we were converting in a timely manner.
So with all of that, what's next? It sounds like you probably have been doing a lot of strategic roadmap planning.
Yeah, and I'm sure, Jill, you'll have a lot more to add to this, but what I can say is I'm really excited. It's been, since our implementation, I mean, we've gone through a lot and a lot of change and a lot of things, honestly, that, AGS hadn't encountered before, right? COVID was new for everyone. And so I think that, with everything that we have going on right now, we have a lot of challenges. Dexcom's going through a ton of growth still, here and in the future. And so I'm just really excited, I think. And so, you mentioned, the strategic roadmap. We've been working on that over the last few months, mapping that out, putting that together, really calling out those strategic initiatives that we want to work on, what we feel good looks like, for this program, and, how do we get there? And then I think from there, right, you're kind of managing that like a project too, in a sense, right, where, you know, we are working with their program managers to ensure that we're staying on top of, you know, everything that we have going on, because we do want to be successful in this. And so I think that, you know, with such a great team and communication and that plan for success, you know, being able to identify these key focus areas that we really want to work on to improve the program, you know, by, you know, increasing our diversity, you know, spend and, you know, achieving those goals that we have, the cost savings and really just the overall program health. You know, the access to this data and using that data will definitely help us in seeing success in these efforts.
That's great. I'm glad this has been such a good experience for you, Kristy. I know that we're all really excited about the future, what the future for your program holds. I know we had a couple of questions come in, but I think that the two of you actually addressed them. There were some questions about how you calculated your diversity spend and what you're excited about. So unless there are any other questions, we'll just let everybody know we've got just a couple of minutes left. So if you've got anything you'd like us to have Kristy answer, you can pop that in the chat now. And while we give that a minute, just a reminder for everybody that AGS has a number of healthcare accounts in our portfolio. So it ranges from life sciences, health insurance providers, and we can help build an MSP program that covers all of those different worker disciplines within the healthcare organization. So glad we've been able to help Dexcom make such an impact on your delivery. And I hope you'll join us again to share more of your journey as you progress. So to everybody else, thanks for joining today, and we look forward to having you on our next AGS Live. Have a great holiday, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.